I'm here today to welcome you to your new family here at Creo. You see, we here at Creo have a mission, and that is to use our technology and our resources to wipe out most of the problem, to create a better, safer future for all of us. Now, to do that, we need a crack team of employees who are willing to work hard and play hard. And to do that, you're gonna have to introduce yourself to your brand new rig, courtesy of us here at Creo R&D. Now, this may look like some kind of glorified forklift that you strap to yourself, but it is so much more than that. And it's very cool. It even hooks up to your brain. I mean, how cool is that? Now, of course, something like that requires a pretty invasive procedure, so if you don't feel comfortable with that, we will take you into a nice quiet room and blow your brains out, because you've already seen it. That's perfectly fine. Simply let us know before your procedure. Of course, we'd like to remind you that you will be under anesthetic and won't feel a thing, and you'll wake up feeling better than ever. Thanks to that little neural link, you'll be connected to the rest of the company. You can't imagine the benefits that'll provide. I mean, we can work you 23.5 hours a day, and you won't even realize it. And when we decide that we don't want you anymore, or maybe you just get a little bit mouthy, we can make your death look like any kind of accident that we want. You can contact your coworkers or manager at any time. Your rig will always be up to date, and we can even use the analytical data from your rig to build better, more efficient rigs in the future. If my rig could only make toast, it would be perfect. Oh, there might be an attachment for that in the future. And we offer so much more. The best healthcare, the best fitness facilities, the best vacation packages you can imagine. And of course, this all extends to your family because we here at Creo are one big family. You are an expendable bag of meat, and you will never be anything more than that to us. So I say again, welcome to Creo. Don't think of it as a new job. Think of it as your new home, surrounded by your new family. You will die here, and if you're lucky, it'll be quick. Welcome back to Eurojank Theatre, where I'm happy to say I finally got to play a good game. So now everyone will know that I'm not just a whiny bitch all the time. Only most of the time. Now, I actually played The Surge when it first came out, and I remember not really having a great time with it. The first boss killed me I don't even know how many times, and when I got to the second main area, I just quit. I was totally done with it. I couldn't really tell you why. I just guess I wasn't in a good mental space to play it or something, but I wish I had stuck it out back then, because this time, I had some fun. Before we talk about the gameplay, let's talk about where the game came from, and that's the land of bratwurst and big beer cups. That's right, we're talking about Germany, ladies and gentlemen. Thankfully, Germany is not known for anything else of historical significance.
Don't say it, don't think it, don't say it, don't think it, don't say it, don't think it, don't say it!
The game was developed by Deck 13, and it seems as though our old pals over at Deck 13 learned a few lessons after Lords of the Fallen. Pretty much the only interesting fact that I could find about the game's development is that it uses the Fledge engine, which was developed in-house at Deck 13. I'm not sure if this same engine was used for Lords of the Fallen or if it was just made for the Surge, but it looks really good. Okay, so we don't have any juicy gossip about the development this time, so let's jump right into the story, which contains some of the most predictable writing and also some of the most batshit insane logic I think I've ever seen. So the Earth is screwed. Okay, maybe this game isn't science fiction. The Earth is screwed, and super huge mega corporation Creo has stepped in to save humanity with the help of their project called Project Resolve. Project Resolve involves putting these warheads on rockets, and the warheads contain payloads of some kind of biochemical thing that they created that, when released into the atmosphere, partially repairs the ozone layer and helps plants grow faster. There is a very little spoken about side effect that's apparently bad for humans. It's got some kind of toxic trait, but we don't really hear a lot about that other than it makes people sick. And then we kind of brush past it. Unfortunately, Resolve doesn't work fast enough, and Creo starts to realize that. So they greenlight another project called Project Utopia, and man, if in real life Amazon or Google or some other company comes out with a project called Project Utopia, it's gonna be bad. Anything called Utopia will involve everyone dying. I can promise you that. Utopia is a little different. Instead of their little chemical compound that they made before, it has nanites, which are little microscopic sentient robots, and they're gonna launch those into the atmosphere, and those are going to repair the ozone layer, and also wipe out 95% of the human race. I'm failing to see how that in any way could be better than what we already had. Instead of, crafting maybe a more potent chemical compound, or perhaps a chemical compound that does not make people sick, and then just launching more of them, the solution is to just kill everybody. And I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not quite understanding how this is better. Anyway, so they haven't launched Project Utopia yet, and the board starts getting cold feet. And at that exact moment, the AI that's in the nanites is like, yo, check this out. And then they fry the entire Creo network and everybody connected to it so that nobody can stop the rocket from launching. This event is known as the Surge. And the video can end now.
Just kidding.
Since most of the employees at Creo are hooked up to the network when this happens because of their rigs, it fries their brains and basically turns them into walking zombies. They're not literal zombies, like they don't eat flesh or anything, but they're boiled down to their primal instincts, so they just kind of wander around and attack anything that comes close to them. Except each other? They don't attack each other, just you. Unfortunately for the player character, Warren, this all happens on your first day on the job. You roll up to work, that is not an ableism joke. You get fitted for your rig, which all happens very painlessly. And then the surge happens. You wake up in a junkyard being harvested for parts by a little drone. 25 hours of shenanigans occur, and you get to the end of the game where there's 2 different endings. One of the endings involves not really doing anything, and the nanites launch into the atmosphere and wipe out most of the population. That's the canon ending. So the sad ending where everyone dies is the real ending. This really is a Souls-like. The alternate ending is where you actually manage to plug in a little thumb drive into the rocket, and it neutralizes the nanites, and then the military shows up and they get killed by all the zombies that are there. And that's it, I guess? I guess the other ending is more exciting, where everyone dies. Most of the story is told to you through audio logs and occasional conversations with NPCs that you meet. Warren seems like he's gonna get some kind of real story because when the game starts, he's in a wheelchair and he's here to get a second chance to be able to walk again. But after that introductory cutscene, you really don't get a whole lot of development with Warren. He just kind of becomes a blank slate for you to run around as. The environmental storytelling through most of this game is kind of drab. A lot of the places you explore just look like samey hallways, samey corridors, samey obstacles, samey enemies. But occasionally, kind of like towards the beginning and the end of the game, there are some interesting areas that you go through, some interesting environmental storytelling. And for the most part, I think this game looks pretty good. They also seem to learn from Lords of the Fallen, and they don't have like quiet ambient noise or like quiet dramatic music playing all the time like they did in Lords of the Fallen. Except for when you go into the med bay, which is like the bonfire in this game, where there's a 30-second loop of a song that just plays over and over and over. It got annoying after the second visit to the med bay. Now this game contains the typical controls you'd see in any Souls-like game. Right bumper attack, right trigger attack, left bumper block, left trigger changes target. And that's because targeting enemies is a little different in this, because you can target specific limbs on the enemies and you can cut them off, which is kind of like the hook of the whole game. If you build up enough energy when you're attacking an enemy and you have a specific limb targeted, you can cut off that limb and take either the armor or the weapon that was being held with that body part. If it's a weapon, you just get the weapon. If it's an armor part, you unlock the schematic to craft it at a later point. Although this sounds like a really cool system where you're constantly going through the game and finding new armor on enemies and going, ooh, I really want that, they kind of shot themselves in the foot. You see, the first boss you fight, Pax, not the convention, drops a single rigged weapon called the Pax Imperator. And whether you get the regular version of the weapon or the hardcore version of the weapon, it's one of the most busted weapons in the whole game. And this is the first boss. Then in the second area, which is right after you fight that boss, there are these security guard enemies that have pretty much the best armor in the game. So you get the best weapon in the first area, the best set of armor in the second area, and the whole rest of the game you're just kind of ignoring everything else because nothing's going to be as good as what you have. Of course, there are different builds that you can go for. You know, if you prefer different types of weapons, obviously that's fine. You don't have to like the single rigged weapons to get through this game. But if you look up like best builds for the Surge, you know, best weapons, best armor, it pretty much always comes back to this set. So the flow of the game is kind of stunted in that sense because 6 hours into a 25-hour game, you don't need to worry about equipment anymore. You've got what you need. Does this make the rest of the game not fun? No, but it does take a little something out of it. Now, I mentioned the hardcore version of the boss weapon earlier, and that's because every boss in this game drops a weapon. However, if you kill them in a special way, you get a hardcore version of their weapon that's better. Take, for example, the second boss. He's got all these spindly little legs that you can cut off. You don't have to cut them off, but if you do that before you smash his nougaty center, you get the hardcore version of his weapon. See? You didn't have to do that, but you did, and here's your bonus. Kind of cool. This game introduced a new dodging mechanic as well, where while you're blocking, you can either jump up or duck down to evade attacks. Boy, let me tell you, I used that a whopping 0 times through the whole game. Because you also just have a dodge button that requires less input and less thought. With all that said, the game is still mostly fun. I mean, there's only 5 main bosses in the game, not counting DLC bosses. The DLC for this game is pretty light on stuff. It's not, you don't really like need to play it. You can, it's a couple hours to kill, but it's really not that necessary. This game is very much built around fighting 1, maybe 2 enemies at a time, which really makes it difficult when you walk into rooms with like 3 enemies, or you have to fight one of the enemies that are not a humanoid enemy. See, there are like machines and stuff around that you have to fight sometimes, and boy, let me tell you, the robots with the 3 legs and the metal tail can all be bulldozed off a cliff. I hate them all. They suck. Fighting those types of enemies in this game is not very fun because the combat in this game feels like it was made for one-on-one dueling. I feel as though the game kind of pigeonholed itself a little bit with the control scheme and the limb cutting and how kind of jank and awkward some of the animations are when you're fighting enemies. That's where the jank comes in this Eurojank game. When you fight people, it doesn't... there's something missing, and I'm aware that I'm pretty sure this was fixed in the Surge 2, but there's just, you have to play it to understand, similar to Lords of the Fallen, and it's not as bad as Lords of the Fallen. That felt very clunky. This feels less clunky, more rewarding, but still, there's something off. Something that I did like is that every, 20 to 30 minutes, this game gives you a breath of fresh air without fail. Just about every time that I thought an area was going on a little too long, I would open a door and a shortcut would reveal itself right back to the med bay, and I'd be like, oh, okay, thank you. This game is very good at that. It knows exactly where to place those shortcuts, and I commend it for that because that is a skill. Now, I want to talk about some of the negatives in this game, and I'm aware, I think some of these are fixed in the Surge 2, much like the combat I was talking about earlier, but I'm talking about the Surge 1, so let's get it out there. The weapon combos. Okay, so every weapon type in this game has different combos, obviously. However, they don't always come out the way you think they're going to, so a lot of the times when you're attacking an enemy, say you tap the right bumper 3 times, you don't hit the enemy 3 times. Sometimes it's like a 5-hit combo, and 1 button press is 3 attacks, and you can't dodge out of it or block or anything like that to stop it, so you get stuck in these like 7 to 8 second combo animations. Meanwhile, the enemy is winding up to smack your head off with a giant hammer or something. I get it. I think they were going for a heavy feeling type of game because you're in this big like exosuit kind of thing and you got these big heavy weapons. I get it. But when you start taking control away from the player, it doesn't feel good. It does not have good game feel when you get stuck in these long-ass animations and then get punted off a railing by some brainless idiot. Or, God forbid, you accidentally do too long of a combo animation and just combo yourself right off a ledge. Done that multiple times. Speaking of edges, there are a lot of places in this game where you'll be on platforms with railings that are supposed to keep you from falling off. However, the dodge that you do in this game kind of elevates you a little bit. It's not a straight dodge, it's kind of like a long hop. And if you're not careful, you can hop and clip over the tops of the railings and just die while you're fighting somebody. I would say, oh, okay, I should just have better spatial awareness. But with a railing being there, I assume I'm not supposed to be able to fall over the railing. Like, I assume I can like rub up against it or something, or dodge into it and not just go through it. Warren becoming a blank slate after the like intro part of the game is a huge missed opportunity. Big waste of time. Since the game benefits so much from that dueling type combat that I mentioned before, most of the enemies in this game are just dudes, including one of the main bosses. He's just a guy, which is disappointing. I mean, I think Lords of the Fallen had a similar issue, not quite as bad. I will say I think the enemy variety in that game was a bit better, and more of the enemies in that game weren't horribly annoying to fight. Again, just about the Surge 1, I'm sure it's better in the Surge 2. Platforming in this game, although rare, probably some of the worst out of any Souls or Souls-like game ever. Warren's jumps, awful. Just terrible. They just don't work all the time, and they're a pain in the ass to deal with. Anytime I see any kind of platforming puzzle where there's like a hidden item or something, it's like, ooh, if you do this platforming puzzle, you get this, whatever. I ignore it. I don't want to bother. Now, with everything said, I do still recommend playing the Surge, especially now that it's been out for like 5 years, because it goes on sale for pennies all the time. So definitely pick it up when it's like, $10 or less at some point. I think it's definitely worth that. It's got good atmosphere. I like dark stories. I like stories where, the good guy does not necessarily win at the end, or that it's ambiguous. Well, I guess it's not really ambiguous anymore because there's a sequel that tells us what happened, but at the time, suspension of disbelief, ambiguous. I enjoyed my time with the Surge. I had a really good time playing. Out of all the games that I've played for Eurojank so far, it is the one that I would go back and play again. I'm excited to play the Surge 2, and if you haven't guessed by my positive reception of this game, the Surge 2 is probably going to be the next Eurojank game if it isn't Dead Island. So I hope you guys liked the video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe because it helps me and the channel more than you know. I didn't stream the Surge when I was playing it because it's been very hot where I live lately, and my office is in the basement. You might think, oh, the basement stays cool. Most of the time it does, but this week the sun has been beating on this side of the house so badly that my office is basically a sweatshop, and I really just wanted to play the Surge on my laptop in my comfortable air-conditioned living room. So this week I'll try to get back to streaming because we're doing a dead game next, and it's one that EA and DICE have practically been begging me to cover on the series. So make sure you go follow my Twitch at twitch.tv/resetget for that, and look out for the next video, dead game video, and yep, gonna be talking about Battlefield 2042. So stay tuned, and I'll see you there.